So early in 1970, you're thinking about things, trying to figure out who you are, and you said you found some Christian resources.
Yeah.
What was useful?
Well, I think I mentioned this in the Reason for God. 3 things I realized, I found that I think you always have to find in order to become a Christian. I saw a small group of people. It was a very small little Christian fellowship, but I liked them. I liked they seemed thoughtful, and I could. You have to have a group of people that embody the kind of Christian you would be if you became a Christian. It's a little bit like trying on a dress, I think. You know, you buy it because you try the dress on and you look...
You're speaking theoretically.
Very theoretically. You go, you try it on, you look in the mirror and say, okay, I'll buy it. In a way, a community is like that. You're seeing, so that's what I would look like as a Christian. So you have to find some people that you like that are Christians that give you an idea of what you would look like. The second thing is there were the intellectual credibility issues. You know, how can you be a Christian and be an intelligent, educated person? InterVarsity Press books helped me a lot. And the third thing is, besides a community and the intellectual resources, the third thing you need is an existential crisis, usually. Something that makes you feel the need for God. In that case, it was my painful introversion and my fear like nobody will ever accept me as I am if they ever got to know me.
Okay, and so how did you, if you have, how did you overcome that?
Oh, you're saying how did an introvert get to be a megachurch pastor in Manhattan?
I was trying to be more polite than that.
Very gradually.
Yeah.
Very gradually. I mean, it's a combination of the fact that God called me to be a minister, and then He decided to prosper my ministry more than a lot of other people's, which was always a surprise. I'm not really sure why. I still don't know why. It's not false modesty. I'm still not sure why. But that eventually starts to make you say, gee, God is blessing. So there's the gift side and there's the grace side. The gift side is, God can continue to send me people who seem to be helped by the ministry, and that overcomes some of your your lack of confidence. But the danger of relying on your gifts, saying, hey, I'm a pretty good preacher, people will come back, they'll listen to me, is then that leads to the opposite of an inferiority complex, which is called a superiority complex, which is probably more deadly, maybe, or maybe equally deadly. They're both self-absorption. And so as I move from being feeling like nobody likes me to, wait, oh my gosh, everybody likes me, then you get really famous, then nobody likes you again. But I had to work on the gospel in my heart a lot. So every time I started to get too big ahead, something would come along, and God would bring me down. And this is the way I think everybody grows. Bring me down, and I'd have to use the gospel to shore up my confidence, on the basis of His grace rather than on my gifts. Addison Leach used to say, he was a professor of mine at Gordon Cowell, that he said, simplicity lies on the far side of complexity, on the near side is simple-mindedness. And what he meant is, if you don't understand, I remember actually, I realized, most of the people in my church built their own homes and always repaired their own cars. It was considered completely indulgent and frivolous to actually pay somebody else to build your home or to pay somebody else to fix your car. I even had a woman who was in her 60s that, for fun, used to take engines apart and put it back together again. You have to remember this is the 1970s, back when this was possible. And they have, certain people have made that impossible to do. You just can't work on your own car anymore. But one of the things I remember somebody told me once when I used that illustration, they said, oh, okay, right now you're simple-minded about cars because you know kind of how to do certain maintenance, but I've taken the whole engine apart, and when I was in the middle of taking the engine apart in my front yard, I was afraid I would never get back together again. I got it back together again, and now I can do the same thing you do, except I understand it better, and I can explain how cars operate in a way. So I came to realize that to be able to teach the Christianity simply, in a way that was really simple but not simple-minded, meant to actually do harder work. So when I looked at the kind of messages I prepared for my college friends in InterVarsity, I actually did not have to do as much work as I had to do in Hopewell, Virginia, because there I actually had to understand the text better, and I had to understand my theology better in order to speak more simply. Yeah. And I think that's what I learned down there. But I also learned pastoral work. In a small town, be fast, in a small town, your pastoring sets up your preaching, whereas in a big town, your preaching sets up your pastoring, which means in a big town, because they like the way you preach, then they'll trust you to come and share their trouble with you. But in a small town, they can't really tell the difference between great preaching and mediocre preaching. It's all just preaching. They can tell the difference between loud and soft preaching, but that's about it. And so basically the pastoring, if they see you being wise and kind and loving and then they'll trust you to come and listen to your sermons. So you had to spend time with them in the nursing home, in the prison, at the funeral home. They had to see you there, and you couldn't just be sitting there like a bump on a log. You had to be helping them. You had to be telling them things that really helped them, gave them new perspective, enabled them to get through it. And if you were a good pastor, that made you a person they listened to in preaching. Now, one of the problems is if you just go to towns like New York and spend all your time ministering, which I've told a lot of my guys here, is you never learn to pastor. Mm-hmm. You just learn how to do public communication. And ultimately, your preaching will be worse if you don't know how to pastor, because you haven't actually gotten involved in the hurts of people's lives. So I learned a lot from Hopewell, and if I had not gone there, I wouldn't have learned a lot of that. It makes me a much better preacher today, way, way better than I would have been if I'd never been there.